What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Christ in Capital, the show that wants to encourage you to love God, love neighbor, and build something. I'm the host, Dustin Johnson, and I'm ready for this episode. Hopefully, it's going to get some people out of their seats, off their butts, and moving, doing something. So today we have on Leah McHenry, who is the famed rock star, business coach, marketing extraordinaire, homeschool mom, all of that. So I'm super excited. Before I do that, though, I just want to remind everyone, go and sign up for Patreon. We have a whole bunch of tiers there, for, benefits for people who join us. Lots of cool things coming down the pipe. So please join us. Want to get the message of free market economics and the biblical worldview out into the culture. I think that's really needed right now. So without further ado, like I said, we have on Leah McHenry. How are you doing, Leah?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on. It's going to be fun talking about this stuff.
Yeah. I, it's interesting trying to get people who have kind of the robust biblical worldview, but also have the economic and the business side of things. I just like those two worlds mashing together. And so I thought your story was perfect for that. So, let's just get started. I wanted to basically have you give us a brief rundown of your history, how you got started in music, and then how your brand, your business in music started, successes, all of that stuff. And then we can kind of move on into the coaching and the other business ventures that you have right now. But yeah, if you just want to start with the business or the music stuff.
Well, I don't want to bore everyone to death, but I'll try to keep it nutshell version. I just started out as a homeschool mom. We have 5, and now my youngest is 6, oldest is turning 15 soon. Started family really young, and I just did the stay-at-home mom thing for many years, and was always a musician my whole life, and was a songwriter. And then after, I think it was the second or third kid, I was basically in my spare time, I would go to the recording studio. I had friends with studios, and I'd be doing this as a hobby anyway. But then I was like, I need to do an album. Like, if I can't die without having done an album, like I need to do it. It's like built in me. So created my first album, released that in 2012. And I was actually I think maybe 8 or 9 months pregnant when I sang that first album. So I was like the world's most uncool rock star in the entire world. I was like this big heffalump, like pregnant homeschool mom singing like Celtic metal. Like, what the heck? Nobody's going to listen to me. I did have some like secret hopes that like when I put it out on the internet, someone would discover me and I'd get this record deal.
Your big break.
Yeah, my big break. The homeschool mom with all these kids getting a big break. It was pie in the sky, but I did have that secret hope. And so I put it out there, and sure enough, there was just crickets. Nothing really happened at all. And I quickly found out that just because you build it doesn't mean anybody's going to come, and you can put it out on the internet. You can do all this stuff, but that means nothing if you don't have an audience and you don't know how to market it. And I also learned very quickly that, touring wasn't going to be an option for me. I actually had some label interest, but as soon as they found out I wasn't going to be a touring musician, that was off the table. No way. They weren't going to do that. Yep. So, and that was within like a year or two. I still get emails every single year from this one label that I won't mention by name. I think they have a timer. Like every year it goes off and they say, email Leah and see if she'll sign with us now.
Well, that's good. You got a backup plan, right?
Yeah. So after a couple of years of just like really, I don't know, struggling with trying to get my music out there, I finally stopped studying the music industry. I just found that it was overall really not helpful, didn't get me anywhere, just stopped studying it. And instead I started looking at what was going on in the e-commerce world. It was like, well, there's a lot of businesses out there that are crushing it online. Like, what are they doing? So it wasn't until I made that pivot that I finally made some progress. And then I made progress relatively quickly. And I had some key pivotal moments just like in our personal lives, struggling really bad financially, just being a single income household, having a bunch of kids. My husband was a carpenter, and he had his own business, but we were getting hit so bad by taxation for the lower middle class. We're in Canada, BC, and it's so brutal. And before we know it, it was like we're having to decide between, do we pay taxes or do we buy groceries? What are we going to do?
Oh gosh.
Yeah. And so at that point, obviously you feed your family, right? And so then we just got more and more and more behind on taxes. And it was just this huge, overwhelming burden until like one day it was like the Canadian government's like advising us to file bankruptcy as like the way out. And that just made me so angry. I was so mad. I was mad that we were in this position. I was mad at the system. I was mad at taxation. I was so angry. And I was like, just this fire lit inside me. And I was like, that's not happening. And I don't care what I got to do. I'm going to do something come hell or high water. I am doing something. And then just something lit up in me. And I decided I'm going to make six figures with my music. I don't know what I got to do that yet, but I'm going to do it. And it was like, I just made up my mind to do it. And that's when things really changed. And, I ended up launching my first fan club and doing all that. And in a very short amount of time, we paid that debt off. We never had to file bankruptcy or anything because I ended up figuring out what to do and made the money relatively quickly. So then it was like, wow, hitting six figures was really not that hard. What happens if I go for more than that? So if it was just a matter of making up my mind and then figuring out how to do it, why don't I go for bigger numbers then?
Right.
And that's when later on I was having quite, this is pretty successful for, a recording artist who doesn't tour, who has all these kids at home, not leaving the house, just putting out, music and being creative with how to sell music and merch online. That's when eventually that turned into my academy, which, Savvy Musician Academy, where I teach I teach musicians online marketing and how to do it without a label, how to do it without any middlemen, managers, all that stuff. And just like, it's direct to consumer sales, music, merchandise, selling, crowdfunding. It's all just marketing. It's just online marketing.
Yeah. Did you have, well, I guess the key question I want is what did you see as like the key like thing that gave you the most traction when you made that switch in your mind? What like tool or what approach, what was the philosophy that kind of gave you that, the traction in the industry?
Well, I would never point to a single tool or anything, because a tool is just a tool. The tools change. The tools really don't matter. Not that they don't matter at all, but that's not like, I feel like that's like a common thing that people think. It was like, well, what platform are you using? It doesn't matter what platform I was using. What was the strategy I was using? Because that will transfer to whatever platform. So the philosophy that drove me to get to that first six figures was coming across that Kevin Kelly article that you probably read called 1,000 True Fans. Super famous article. If you haven't heard it, just Google it, Kevin Kelly, 1,000 True Fans. And the philosophy was, if you could get 1,000 fans to pay you about $100 a year for whatever it is you offer, well, that's a six-figure income, not a bad start. And suddenly, instead of me trying to reach the entire world with my music and trying to become a household name, become famous, I changed my attitude to stop trying to be famous and just get 1,000 true fans, just get 1,000 fans. And that was so doable and felt so in reach that that's what motivated my entire thing and changed my philosophy, changed my strategy. I'm like, all I have to do is find 1,000 super fans who will pay $100. Now that could be split up throughout the year. It doesn't have to be one chunk. It could be an album here, a t-shirt there, a membership or a Patreon or a fan club or whatever, and get them to pay that. And so that was what was so doable for me, and that changed everything.
So it basically, you niched down into a specific section of the market, and I think you've termed it Celtic metal. Is that right? Well, yeah.
So the 1,000 fan model in combination with niche marketing. So I'm a huge believer in niche marketing and going deeper, not wider when it comes to audiences and who you're trying to reach. So that's where it becomes quite lucrative, and I've experienced this a number of times now. So yeah, my music It depends. It'll change a little bit from album to album. I always reevaluate, but
Mhm.
generally speaking, yeah, it's like symphonic metal, but it's really inspired by Celtic and fantasy.
Yeah, I was listening to you know, songs like This Present Darkness versus the new album, which there's a progression there of like the
Hmm.
styles, but it's so unique. Yeah, so I'm gonna link that in the show notes so everyone can go listen. But anyways, okay, so after the music, you got into coaching. So you went from a art selling art, your product was your art, to a service, right? And then the coaching was like marketing focused. How do you market your business online? How do you get sales? All of that stuff. Now, what is it like going from something like that to a product? I mean, I'm sorry, not a product. A product business. So you got into the candle making. What was that like? What was that jump like? Was there a connection there, or was it just something way out, in left field? Talk to us
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah. So, well, the candle business, Mythologie Candles, I launched in March of 2020, nice month to launch a new business.
Yeah.
um, but that was based off of my music. I consider it a sister brand to my music because it's got a lot of similar influences based off of mythology, fantasy, all of that stuff, medieval, King Arthur, all of those fun things, Vikings, all that stuff. But I really wanted to sink my teeth into a physical product brand because I've studied e-commerce so heavily in the past several years, just selling my music. And selling music online is probably one of the harder things you can do because of streaming all this stuff, but trying to monetize it. I feel like if you learn that skill, you can literally sell anything and it'll seem so easy once you figure that out. So I really want to sink my teeth into something different and new. As an entrepreneur, like you just need a new challenge sometimes. And
Yeah.
so I started that. It was mostly like just for pure fun. And in fact, that's part of our core values in that company now we have three core values and fun is one of them. Like that's why I started the company. It has to be fun. If it's not fun, then something needs to change or I need to sell it or something. So that started and we grew that company. Excuse me. We grew that company from 0 to a 7-figure business in about 9 months. So from March to
Wow.
December, and grew up to a team of about 15 people, and we're just hiring and hiring. And then this year we want to 5x what we did in 2020. So yeah,
Wow.
we have. So in terms of like the shift, I feel like there's definitely a lot to know about e-commerce and a product-based business. And that's really what I'm specializing in right now with trying to help people. I've got a course in the works called $1 Million Idea. People can sign up for the wait list if they want to be notified when that launches. It's all about validating your idea, validating your product, validating the market, making sure that once you launch, you are really off to the races. Because that's what I did. I spent several months studying everything and becoming an expert essentially on the candle market in my niche of what and I'm just filling a hole that wasn't there. So,
Yeah.
or nobody was really doing it at scale.
Mhm.
And in a way that was like on the higher end. And I have so much to say about that. I could talk about this in my sleep. So you feel free to interrupt me anytime. But yeah,
Well,
in terms of the big difference between an education business that's like
mhm.
information and education and training versus a product-based business is really the customer journey and the sales conversion process is very different. So in like
Okay.
a product-based business, like with my candles, the image and the title and the vibe should sell itself. Like people will impulse buy. They see it, they like it, they buy it. There's no explanation really needed.
Yeah.
Whereas with an education company, first of all, there's different people, right? They don't know they have a problem and therefore don't know a solution. There's people who know they have a problem but don't know the solution. There's people who are aware of their problem. They've tried a solution that hasn't worked. And then finally, they're aware of the problem. Now they're aware of your solution and they decide to work with you. So that process can be very long. And so you have to do a very good job of educating them about their problem, educating them about your solution and why it's the best one and why they might consider, purchasing from you or learning from you. That process can be anywhere from like an hour to like 2 years. It's a very, very different model, and you have to treat it differently. You cannot expect the same type of results. So
Okay.
I'm enjoying the product-based business. I would say that my education company, Savvy Musician Academy, that one's important in that it's doing a good thing in the world. It's transforming lives. It's helping artists and musicians learn how to create an income out of nowhere that they didn't have before. But it's a tough crowd, and they're very skeptical. They're very skeptical of just information products in general on the internet. And then also just stuff like my story and like, oh, you can't do it. They're kind of stuck in the old music industry. So you have to, it's tough, but it's rewarding. It's very rewarding for the people that come through and actually change their lives. Whereas a product-based business, it's such an easy win. It's such an easy thing to sell. And that one I'm also finding extremely rewarding because of how quickly we've been able to grow it, how enthusiastic people are. It's extremely happy all the time. Our customers are happy. The product is happy. Everything's happy about that. And so it's been just so refreshing, but they're very, very different.
I would imagine that for those like service-based education products, though it's hard to get people to make that paradigm shift and make that switch and say, okay, I'll dive into the information products. Once you land them, though, I imagine there's some loyalty there that keeps them coming back.
Oh, definitely.
I would imagine. So talk to me about the candle business. So I've been following you on social media, and I mean, just to put it, lightly, it's a big success. You're doing a lot of, revenue really quickly. I'm guessing at some point you decided you had to figure out how you're going to hire people, how you're going to get warehouse space, all that stuff. But one of the questions I had was, what was it like making that decision of when to hire people? It seems to me like, with my wife has a small little business that she does on the side. We haven't got to the point of hiring people yet, but it seems to me like you would have to get to a point where you're like pushed to the brink before you jump into hiring people, because it seems like such a hassle. There's so much legal, things that have to go on, all that stuff. What was that like? Was it planned, or did you just had to?
Yeah, my philosophy with hiring is you definitely want to be like bursting at the seams, like literally can't handle it anymore unless you hire someone else. So hiring is almost like, it's like the last minute thing that you do when you just can't handle it anymore. And if you approach it like that, you'll never have the problem of over hiring, because we've done that before in our other company where we've over hired and thinking, oh, we're gonna, we plan on growing, so we need this person, we need this person. And it ended up not going the way we wanted. It's a common problem in businesses. So it's better to almost err on the side of under hiring than over hiring. It's a better problem to have, we'll say. You don't want to have to fire people unnecessarily. It'd be better to be like, oh my gosh, I need somebody. So that's our philosophy. And in the candle business, the easiest thing to offload was actually manufacturing, because we pour them by hand. We don't outsource it to a factory or something. We actually make everything by hand. We order in all the supplies. We make it ourselves.
Oh, wow.
We do everything in-house in our own warehouse. So the first hire was getting help actually making them. And that was easy. And that's something you can train. And it's funny because I see in like candle groups on Facebook, like people don't want to do that in their business because they don't want them knowing their secret recipe and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you guys, like, that's the first thing you should hire out. Like, sorry to break it to you, but there's nothing proprietary about candles. Like, we all have access to the same suppliers, the same fragrance oils, the same ingredients. Mm-hmm. There's nothing proprietary about this. Everything that's going to make you successful has to do with branding and positioning and how good of a marketer you are. That's literally it. And like what niche you're in. And so therefore, that's where you should put all your time. You should not be putting all your time into making them. that's duplicatable, that's scalable. You can hire people to do
Right.
that. So as soon as you possibly can, get out of the way and start focusing on selling. Just sell like this. I feel a little strongly about this, as you can tell. I just see
I can
so
tell.
many business owners procrastinate. I seriously consider anything that is not selling is a form of procrastination. Like, if you're
Yep.
spending time looking at business cards and fonts and websites, you're procrastinating. If you're not out there figuring out a sales process that you can scale, you're procrastinating. Like, you're avoiding the one thing you need to do. So that's how I feel about it.
Okay, good. Yeah, I said at the beginning of the episode that we were going to get people off their butts and moving. So there we go. So do you think, or is it accurate to say that, across all these different types of businesses that you've had, that there's that the marketing and the content communication or the product communication is kind of the non-negotiable underlying thing that goes across all of them? That's the thing that you need to wrap your arms around, your mind around, and that's the thing that kind of will get you traction in anything that you do, essentially.
Are you talking? Can you define what you mean by that?
Like, so is it accurate to say that if someone can get the marketing down and the strategies and understand what marketing is, that will help them in no matter what they do?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you have to have a good product, okay? Whether it's an education, informational product, it has to be transformative, or it has to solve a pain or deliver a desire and fulfill that. It has to be good. It has to be quite excellent, actually. Because you could have the greatest marketing in the world, but if your product is crappy or your information product doesn't really get people results, that's going to go away really fast. So you do have to have that in place. Something you're proud of, something works or solves that pain point or delivers a desire. We are in Mythologie Candles. Our tagline, like our actual mission statement, is we deliver happiness. We exist to deliver happiness to fantasy nerds. That is our mission statement. We're not even delivering candles. We're delivering happiness to fantasy nerds. We make people happy by fulfilling this desire. So we're not really solving a problem. We're fulfilling a desire, which is an emotion. But so you have to have a good product. And then once you have that, it's all the marketing, positioning, messaging. It's all the marketing stuff that you need a system. You need a system that's going to convert. And that just takes a lot of testing and planning and so forth.
Okay. Man, your story's just been really encouraging to me over the past couple of years. I first heard you on Apologia Radio, Jeff Durbin, those guys. And kind of been following you from then on. But I want to ask you a quick fun question.
Sure.
What's your favorite fantasy novel story besides Narnia or Lord of the Rings? Or are they your favorite ones?
Well, yeah, they're definitely at the top. They're kind of hard to beat. Yeah. I don't have a lot of time these days for fiction. I will say I really enjoy video games as well. I don't know if that counts, but
okay.
I like video games because I can turn them on and turn them off. Whereas like if I were to start like a D&D campaign or something that lasts 17 hours, like I literally don't have time for that. So, I wish I did, but I like video games because I can play for like 15 minutes or 20 minutes or an hour one day and then turn it off and not play it again for another week and a half or something. And I haven't lost anything. And I remember where I'm at. So I like that. I like the Assassin's Creed games. I'm playing through Valhalla right now. It's a lot of fun. So I like that stuff, but that doesn't count as like a novel.
It kind of does. I was just recently playing through the most recent Legend of Zelda game. I can actually imagine your music in the background of those. Maybe video games is your next venture.
My next thing. Well, I definitely get inspiration from the worlds in terms of like what I like about the Assassin's Creed games is they're so historically, like they're so immersed in history, and just
Yeah.
like I like the open worlds and just like the beautiful scenery and all of that. I totally get inspired by that. I love Skyrim as well. I
Oh, yeah.
was inspired to write my album The Quest from playing that game. It was really
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot of fun. Yeah. So I do like Elder Scrolls as well.
Okay. That's awesome. Well, I think we're going to end the podcast and the YouTube video here. But for all you subscribers, we are going to have one extra question that I'm going to ask Leah. What did they say behind the paywall? Maybe that's not the best way to brand it, or advertise it. But anyways, you get the point. So thank you, Leah, for coming on. I really appreciate it, and hope maybe someday in the future we'll have you on again to talk with us.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Awesome.